Donald Trump is back to trolling the Republican National Committee. The former president will participate in a Fox News town hall airing at the same time as CNN's GOP primary debate on January 10th. Now, the CNN debate stage will be considerably smaller than last time. Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie failed to garner enough in the polls to qualify for the debate, meaning just Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are expected to participate on the 10th. Ramaswamy already announced, however, he would be skipping the debate anyway in protest of CNN's, quote, shenanigans. Ramaswamy says the network is propping up Nikki Haley and concealing truth from their viewers. Let's see what he's talking about during some CNN coverage from this week.
I got to ask you about a curiosity also in this presidential race. Steve King has endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy. Last time he was seen, he was arguing that white supremacy was not so bad of a thing. Why is this happening?
I don't know. I mean, I wish he's like the bad penny that just won't go away. I mean, I had my issues with him, yes, in 2016 and what he did to Ben Carson in those caucuses. And I don't know what it doesn't do anything for Vivek. I mean, it really doesn't do anything except what Steve King is trying to do, because he understands the caucus process, which is wound DeSantis or Haley enough so that Trump can then squeak out a victory in Iowa and then move on to New Hampshire.
Do you really think there's a constituency for this that will actually benefit Vivek Ramaswamy?
I mean, a small one? Vivek is what, at like 4 or 5% in the polls now? He's very off-putting.
According to the most recent Morning Consult polling, Trump is still far and away the primary leader, earning about 66% of Republican voter support. DeSantis and Haley are just about tied for second place at 11% each. In a new Daily Mail general electorate poll, Nikki Haley trounces Joe Biden with 40% to 35%. Biden does, however, top Ron DeSantis by a few percentage points.
Yeah, I have to mention again that Marianne Williamson is still holding at a higher polling rate than so many Republican candidates that have been given town halls, debate platforms, et cetera, on the right side of the aisle. Even if Donald Trump isn't participating in those debates, they are at least getting an opportunity to be heard in front of the public. But the left candidates are getting no such opportunities. Dean Phillips, I would mention, but he is polling less well than Marianne Williamson. And it is shocking to see the so-called liberal media that ostensibly should have more interest in the left-leaning candidates go out of their way to platform Vivek Ramaswamy or RFK Jr. without platforming the only candidate in the Democratic race who Dean Phillips is going to say he supports Medicare for All now, but prior to 6 months ago, supported Medicare for All or a number of other very popular policies that overwhelming majorities of Democratic voters want.
Yeah, no disagreement there. It's totally inexcusable. They have more interest, and I'm glad they're providing a platform to the other Republican candidates as well. Fox has been doing that, but there's been a blackout. I mean, I hope all networks put on Marianne Williamson and give her more of an opportunity to explain her thinking, because there are plenty of Americans, both within the Democratic coalition and not explicitly within the Democratic coalition, that are at least interested in, say they're very interested in, an alternative to Joe Biden. So why not hear from some of those purported alternatives? It's baffling, but we know why that is. The attitude of the DNC and their mouthpieces on mainstream media is that there should be no primary and there should be no debate. Joe Biden is the incumbent, and thus it need not be. It's bestowed upon him. He shouldn't have to fight for it. That's the attitude of people like Simone Sanders and others who we've played their clips on the show. So
while the polls, I think the last ones I saw from the end of last year, Williamson was at 12% in NBC News poll, 13% in Fox News, 12% in Quinnipiac, compared to Vivek Ramaswamy's now apparently 4%. Are you surprised that Vivek's poll numbers have fallen this much, and to what do you attribute that to? Do you agree that with him that it's that Fox News is rigging the game against him by pumping up Nikki Haley?
No, I don't know whether that's the case. Look, he made some waves. He got a lot of headlines for himself, got a lot of attention, and he did have his poll numbers start to creep up. But again, I think his support overlaps so substantially with Donald Trump. Frankly, he seems to be a Trump surrogate on the debate stage, making the case for Trump, frankly, more effectively than he's trying to make any case for himself. He's really there to try to make a case against Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley to delegitimize them on Trump's behalf. I mean, I think it's pretty maybe that might be the mainstream knock on what he's doing, but I think it is fairly clear that that is what he's doing. So maybe he's seeing himself as perfectly successful because Trump is keeping his poll numbers still significantly higher than
if the argument is that Vivek
opponents.
Ramaswamy doesn't have traction because he's too similar to Donald Trump, what accounts for the fact that he used to have much better poll numbers, even against Donald Trump, than he has now? It seems like something has changed to put voters off him compared to how they felt about him, say, 6 months ago. Yeah,
look, I'm not a Vivek booster. Maybe people found his style abrasive and off-putting. I like some of the things he says. I mean, for me, he's an interesting figure. I think he clearly used to have more. I think he said this, that he used to be a libertarian. So when I hear him talk about issues, I will occasionally hear him say something very near and dear to my heart. And then I will also hear him say something that he knows is not libertarian because he's moved on from that ideology. This Steve King thing is actually a perfect example. He had a tweet the other day praising both Ron Paul and Steve King. And I also have a lot of affection for Ron Paul, and I'm glad to see him praised. I don't particularly have any affection for Steve King, who said a number of things, including like what's wrong with how did white nationalism, how did white supremacism become offensive terms? I mean, that doesn't really require any explanation, my dude. So why even lump these people together? Maybe that's turning people off.
Maybe that's it. I was looking at a New York Times report on his campaigning in Iowa that they spoke to some local folks there about how they were feeling about Ramaswamy. One voter named Jerry Nelson, age 46, said, "I'd like to see Ramaswamy presidency, but I think he's got a steep hill to climb." He's worried that a vote for Ramaswamy could, instead of Donald Trump, could help Nikki Haley, and that perhaps Nikki Haley's emergence as a front runner has caused people to be more skittish about looking at alternative.
I mean, that would actually back up my theory that there's a lot of there's a profound fear of and distrust toward Nikki Haley among the most conservative voters among the MAGA base. Now, obviously, that's not all Republicans. There are a lot of moderate Republicans for whom I think she's far away. She has emerged far and away as the consensus choice. The Koch network has gotten behind her entirely, despite her having a foreign policy that I think is frankly very different from what the Koch network professes to say is important. Again, she is no moderate on foreign policy, except in the sense that, well, actually, moderates are some of the hawkish people, depending on how you start sorting out what counts as conservative or what counts as liberal on foreign policy. It's not as clear. She's certainly someone who belongs to the previous Bush-era consensus on those issues, which is why I have a lot of skepticism of her. But it is clear that her presentation and her acceptableness or moderation on a lot of other issues, including most notably abortion, is I think certainly helping her. And we can read the poll numbers as well as anyone else. It looks like right now she's much more of a slam dunk against Biden than anyone else. So if you just want to win, I mean, there's your most compelling option. What do you think the role of Vivek Ramaswamy emphasizing January 6th as an inside job might have played? I mean, January 6th is not something that swing voters, that get persuadable voters really want to talk about anymore, I think, has emerged. The backward-looking nature of Donald Trump's, his focus on relitigating the election proved very cancerous to his candidates in Georgia and Arizona and Nevada in the 2022 Senate races. So it may very well be something that hurts him among gettable voters, while still being an issue that, again, the conservative base, the MAGA base, does want to hear something about. I mean, some of those people watch our show, and we're not relitigating the election, but we do. I have talked about, full disclosure, some of how the media narratives about January 6th have sometimes been overreach, and some of the excessively harsh sentences that I think people who weren't even there have received, without fundamentally disagreeing that it was in fact a riot and Donald Trump does bear some blame. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll continue to follow all the polling on the upcoming presidential race. Stick with us. We have more Rising for you right after this.